Alright guys, so this next one is a continuation of 3.4 slope. So the first one that we did in the other video was about finding slope from a line. This one is going to be about finding slope from a formula. So I know you guys have used this before, so I'm going to only do about half of this. I'm not going to do all of these, and if you need more practice, definitely do some of these and then ask me to check them. So the slope formula is used to find the slope between 2 points when you don't have the graph. You're just given the points. And slope is always simplified, a simplified fraction, just like we talked about before. It's never a decimal. It's never a mixed number. So you're either going to have a fraction, an improper fraction, or a whole number. Okay, so no decimals, please. The actual slope formula is y2 minus y1 over divided by x2 minus x1. So what I always tell kids to do if you're having trouble with who's y2, who's x1, is think about this point as point number 1 and this point as point number 2, and then always remember that you have x first and then y. So this would be x1 and y1 for point 1, and this would be x2 and y2 for point 2. If you need to label your points like that forever, like no one's going to stop you or know the difference. So it's more important to label them and spend that extra time doing that than to not label them and get them wrong. So if you'll do this, it makes it very easy to put them into the formula correctly. x1, y1, x2, y2. So for this problem, our y2 is 3. And then we're going to subtract y1, which is 1. And then our x2 is 4. And then we're going to subtract x1, which is also 1. And so then you can do this in your calculator. Okay, so I would very much like for you to use your calculator to do this. I know that you can do it in your head sometimes. That's fine. But this way it's already simplified if you do it in your calculator. So you're just going to type 3 minus 1 on top, 4 minus 1 on the bottom, push enter, and that gives you the simplified fraction that you need so you don't have to worry about simplifying. Now this one, 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3, was going to be simplified automatically. But sometimes it isn't, and if you don't remember to go back and simplify it, you're going to get it wrong. So if you'll just type the whole thing into the fraction maker, it'll give you the right answer every time. All right, let's skip over here and do number 3. So I've got x1, y1, x2, y2. So that means that I'm going to have 5 minus 8, y2 minus x1, or y2 minus y1. Ugh. And then I'm going to have negative 7 minus negative 7, x2 minus x1. Yes, right, minus negative 7. This minus is part of the formula, and this negative 7 is part of x1, so you do need that. And so then I'm just going to type this into my calculator. 5 minus 8 on top. Negative 7 minus negative 7 on the bottom. Yes, I'm going to type it like that. And uh-oh, I get an error. What's that mean? That means that I tried to divide by 0. So if you do negative 7 minus negative 7, you get 0. And 5 minus 8 is negative 3. Well, if your calculator gives you a 0 error, all that means is it's undefined, and you can shorthand it and just put UND for undefined. Okay? So you don't even have to write this part down. You can just go straight to undefined, but I wanted you to see why it was undefined, and it's because it was trying to divide by 0. All right, let's go to number 5. Number 5 has, I'm trying to look and see, we want to make sure we do plenty of negatives. Okay, we'll do this one. So number 5, we're going to have, again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So y2 is 5, minus y1 is 6. And then we have x2 is 6 minus x1 is 5. So when you do this, you're going to have negative 1 over 1. Right? If you just did that in your head, 5 minus 6 is negative 1, 6 minus 5 is 1. But you don't want to put the answer as negative 1 over 1. Like this would look like this. If you do this, whoops, I hit the wrong button. I hit second instead of alpha. If you will do this in your calculator, 5 minus 6 over 6 minus 5, 5, you're going to automatically get the answer, which is negative 1, because negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1. So if you'll just do it in your calculator, that'll save you that simplification step. And that's it. That's the answer. Let's do number 6. I was going to just do the odd ones, but I think I need to do number 6. So number 6, x1, y1, x2, y2. You've got y2 minus y1, and then we got x2 minus x1. So negative 4 minus negative 4 over 1 minus 9. Let's put that in our calculator. Negative 4 minus negative 4 over 1 minus 9. That one is 0. That's because negative 4 minus negative 4 is 0. 1 minus 9 is negative 8. But 0 divided by anything is 0. So if you get one like that, it simplifies to 0, not undefined. It's different for the 0 to be on top than the 0 to be on bottom. It can be on the top. It cannot be on the bottom. Okay, so don't get those two confused. All right, and then the last one I will do is, because this one, if you look at this one, we've got the same x's, so we're going to end up with another 0 on the bottom. So this one's going to be undefined. This one we've got the same y's like we did in this one, so it's going to end up being 0. So I'm just going to do this one. So again, x1, y1, x2, y2. If you guys want to, try to do these and see if you get that. So this one would be undefined and this one would be 0, and see if you get that. So m is y2 minus y1, so we've got negative 2 minus negative 9, and then x2 minus x1, so 3 minus 5. We're going to put that in our calculator. So we have negative 2 minus negative 9 over 3 minus 5. You don't have to simplify anything. Your calculator knows what to do. It's pretty smart like that. So this one was negative 7 over 2. Already simplified. It's an improper fraction, which is fine. We're ready to go. Okay? All right. So if you guys want to go back and do those other 4 and have me check them, we'll check these 2. You know what these are supposed to be. That would be perfect. This last little section is just about doing like a proportion. So remember in the other video we talked about slope being the ratio of the change in y over the change in x. So we can use ratios to do proportions. So if you have something like 10, then you can find this missing y because it's got to equal 4/5. So you still have to keep in mind x1, y1, and x2, y2. You have to know that to do this. And we're going to set this up just like we did these before it. So we're going to have y2 is y minus 1. So y2, y minus y1, which is 1, over negative 2 minus 3. And that has to equal 4/5. Okay? So remember back before fall break how we did cross multiplication and solve proportions? That's what we're going to do now. So we're going to cross multiply these, and that's going to give us 5 times y minus 1. Remember, you have to use parentheses, equals 4 times, and you can go ahead and add this together. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So if you want to do that, you can do that in your calculator. So we have 5, distribute, I don't know why I'm rewriting this, 5y minus 5, so you distribute the 5, equals negative 20. So now that's a two-step equation to solve. Okay, so we're going to add the 5. I'm going to have to go up here because I always run out of room. So I have 5y from here equals negative 15. Negative 20 plus 5 is negative 15. So then we're going to divide by 5. So y equals negative 3. So this y2 equals negative 3. And then you can check that by putting, so if you substitute in negative 3 right here, see if that gives you 4/5. So we would do negative 3 minus 1 over negative 2 minus 3, and that does give us 4/5, so that means our number was correct. All right, let's do another one. So this one we're going to try to find an x, so we need to find x1. We have y1, we have x2, and we have y2. We know the slope is negative 2. So we're going to do same setup, negative 4 minus negative 6 for the y's over 5 minus x. And then that's going to equal negative 2 over 1. Remember, if you have a whole number, you can just put it over a 1 to make that fraction that you need for the proportion, because negative 2 divided by 1 is just negative 2. So this is what it would have looked like if we would have counted it on the graph like we did in the other video. So when we do this, let's just go ahead and do negative 4 minus negative 6 in our calculator. So we're going to get, I'm going to go over here, 2 over 5 minus x equals negative 2 over 1. Well, when we cross multiply by right here, we're going to get 2. And then when we cross multiply here, we have negative 2 times 5 minus x, which we will have to distribute. So I'm going to have negative 10 plus 2x. Okay, now I set this one up backwards. The x is on the wrong side, but instead of trying to move the x and then moving the 2, I'm just going to add the 10 to the 2, because as long as we get x by itself, it doesn't matter in the long run. So we get 12 equals 2x. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So x equals 6. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So that means right here, we should have 6. So let's see if we get a negative 2 when we do this. So we have negative 4 minus negative 6 over 5 minus 6, and it does equal negative 2, which is what we wanted. So that's great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do these last two because I think we need as much practice and notes over this as we can get. All right, so this one, a lot like 11, we're trying to find this first x. Okay, so we're going to have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then this one equals a fraction. If it has a negative like this, I always just put it with the top number. So negative 1 over 5. So that when I cross multiply, I know to put the negative with the 1 and not the 5. So then I'm going to, I can simplify this and get 8 minus 7 is 1 over 11 minus x, not x minus 11. And it does make a difference. Make sure that you put them in the right order. All right, so then I'm going to have 11 minus x times negative 1 equals 1 times 5 is 5. And then negative 1 distributed is negative 11 plus x. Negative times negative is positive, equals 5. And then I just have to add my 11. Got it carried away. So I get x equals 16. All right, so that means that right here I need 16. So let's do that real quick. So 8 minus 7, oh, whoops, I forgot to put in the fraction. 8 minus 7 over 11 minus 6. I didn't type that. I typed 5. Did y'all see that? So I'm just going to change it. And that does give me, oh, that gives me 1/5. Should be negative 1/5. Oh, I want to put 6. It's supposed to be 16. Good grief. Now it's negative 1/5. So sometimes you have to find your own mistake. All right, last one has a 0, so I did want to make sure we did that one. So again, x1, y1, x2, y2. So what's missing this time is the second x. So we're going to have 3 minus negative 3, and then on the bottom, x minus 0. Now that's interesting. And then remember, we got to put this over a 1. Because x minus 0 is just x. So we can actually simplify the top and the bottom of this. So 3 minus negative 3. What's that? 3 minus negative 3 is 6. Okay, so we're going to have 6 over x equals 6 over 1. Interesting. Because x minus 0 is just x. There's nothing to do there. So when we cross multiply this, we're going to get 6x equals x. When you divide that, that means x equals 1. Well, of course x equals 1 because we were already saying these two fractions had to equal each other. So if the top was 6 and the top was 6, that means that whatever this bottom is, 1, had to be the bottom over here because they had to equal. So the answer is 1. And if we did that real quick in our calculator and put a 1 right there, we would have 3 minus negative 3 over 1 minus 0, which is 6, which is what we wanted. All right, so you guys make sure that you do your slope practice on Delta Math and Excel today and tomorrow.